How influence survives when attention turns hostile. Attention is flattering until it becomes aggressive, supportive until it turns demanding, curious until it starts looking for leverage. This is the moment influence is truly tested, because hostile attention does not want understanding. It wants reaction, it wants mistakes, and it wants control disguised as accountability. To understand why this matters today, we need to recognize a shift that already happened. Attention is no longer passive observation. It is pressure. In the past, attention validated power. Being watched meant being relevant. Being discussed meant being important. But now, attention extracts value. Every question narrows options. Every demand accelerates timelines. Every spotlight invites intervention. The sheiks noticed this transformation early. They watched how praise hardened into expectation, how admiration evolved into entitlement, and how curiosity turned into claim. Influence that once thrived on attention began shrinking under it, so the strategy had to change. Influence could no longer rely on goodwill. It had to survive scrutiny without responding to it. It had to remain effective, even when attention turned adversarial. This required a fundamental shift. Instead of feeding attention, influence learned to starve it selectively. Instead of clarifying intentions, it learned to let outcomes speak later. Hostile attention thrives on immediacy. It demands reaction. It punishes delay. So influence slowed down deliberately, not as retreat, but as insulation. This frustrated observers. Silence was framed as avoidance. Restraint was framed as guilt. But beneath that noise, control stabilized. Because hostile attention loses power when it cannot accelerate behavior, the sheiks realized something critical. Influence does not collapse under hostility. It collapses under synchronization with hostility. The moment power reacts on the attacker's schedule, it surrenders initiative. So influence decoupled itself from attention entirely. It continued moving, but not where cameras pointed. It continued deciding, but not when pressure peaked. This is the opening truth. Influence survives hostility, not by confronting it, not by appeasing it, but by refusing to be timed by it. And that refusal would soon provoke a deeper conflict, because hostile attention, when ignored, always escalates. And escalation forces a choice between visibility and endurance. When hostile attention escalates, it does not do so randomly. It becomes louder, faster, and more insistent precisely because it is trying to collapse time and force decisions before power can reposition itself. Questions repeat with sharper tone. Demand becomes framed as urgency. Silence is interpreted as admission. This is the pressure phase. Hostile attention does not seek truth. It seeks momentum, because momentum creates mistakes, and mistakes create leverage. The sheiks understood this pattern well. They had seen it play out across politics, markets, and media cycles. Those who responded quickly appeared cooperative, but slowly surrendered control with every reply. Each reaction narrowed options. Each clarification fixed positions. Each concession invited the next demand. So influence adopted a counterintuitive posture. It remained present, but disengaged from escalation. Attention expected acceleration. Influence delivered delay. Not silence that vanished, but stillness that absorbed pressure. This delay was strategic. By refusing to accelerate, influence denied hostile attention its primary weapon. There was no reaction to amplify, no error to exploit, no rhythm to synchronize against. Observers grew impatient. Narratives fragmented. Pressure lost coordination. Hostile attention thrives on alignment. Journalists align questions. Markets align expectations. Institutions align responses. Delay breaks alignment. As timelines stretched, interpretations diverged. Consensus fractured. Energy dissipated. Influence remained intact because nothing had moved. But delay alone is not enough. Too much stillness invites suspicion. Too much restraint invites framing. The sheiks balanced delay with motion. Quiet decisions continued. Operations advanced beneath the surface. Outcomes progressed without announcement. This asymmetry was crucial. While attention focused on extracting reaction, influence focused on preserving trajectory. This created a gap. Observers watched stagnation. Power experienced progress. That gap widened with every cycle. Eventually, hostile attention faced a dilemma: escalate further and risk irrelevance, or disengage and lose leverage entirely. This was the first turning point. Influence had survived the initial assault, but survival was not enough, because hostile attention does not disappear. It adapts, and the next phase would be more dangerous. Not louder, not faster, but smarter. It would stop demanding reaction and start targeting structure. And that shift would test whether influence could endure, without ever confronting its critics directly. The conflict deepened the moment hostile attention stopped chasing reactions and started studying patterns. Because when noise fails to provoke mistakes, it inevitably turns analytical, patient, and structural. Pressure became quieter. Questions became strategic. Focus shifted from words to systems. Instead of asking what influence was saying, attention began asking how influence was operating. This was more dangerous. Hostile attention no longer needed speed. It needed insight. It searched for dependencies, choke points, and routines that could be disrupted. The sheiks recognized a shift immediately. They understood that when attention turns structural, delay alone is insufficient. Silence alone is inadequate, because systems leave traces even when leaders do not speak. Patterns emerge, timelines repeat, decisions cluster, and patterns invite interference. Influence responded by fragmenting itself deliberately. Decision-making was distributed. Authority became modular. Outcomes were no longer traceable to a single rhythm. What looked like inconsistency was intentional dispersion. This destroyed predictive models. When attention attempted to map behavior, the map kept changing. When it targeted one process, another delivered the result. There was no stable center to pressure. Hostile attention grew frustrated, without a focal point. Criticism lost cohesion. Investigations overlapped without alignment. Pressure dispersed across too many targets. This was not evasion. It was dilution. Influence learned to exist as an ecosystem, not a hierarchy. Ecosystems are resilient. Remove one element, and others compensate. This resilience frustrated escalation, but dispersion carried risk. Without visible leadership, narratives filled the gap. Speculation intensified. Trust weakened among observers. Hostile attention reframed fragmentation as instability, as disorder, as loss of control. This framing threatened legitimacy. The sheiks faced a delicate balance: remain distributed and risk appearing chaotic, or re-centralize and invite targeting. The choice was critical, because legitimacy, once lost, is difficult to recover without exposure. And exposure was exactly what influence had spent so long avoiding. The next move would define everything: whether influence could remain effective without appearing fragile, whether it could preserve structure without revealing its center. Because hostile attention was no longer asking questions. It was preparing interventions. And interventions do not require understanding. They require opportunity. The climax arrived when influence stopped trying to appear unified and instead made fragmentation its greatest strength. Because hostile attention cannot seize what refuses to consolidate. Rather than re-centralizing authority, influence normalized dispersion. Leadership appeared collective. Decisions seemed emergent. Outcomes arrived without attribution. This dissolved the final leverage hostile attention hoped to use. There was no center to confront, no figure to isolate, no single structure to disrupt. Every intervention landed somewhere, but nowhere decisive. This was the breakthrough. Influence no longer needed legitimacy through clarity. It achieved stability through continuity. Even if parts were challenged, the whole continued functioning. Even if narratives turned hostile, outcomes remained unchanged. Hostile attention exhausted itself, without visible success. Pressure lost credibility. Audiences disengaged. Momentum collapsed. This was the resolution. Influence survived not by defeating attention, but by outlasting it, by refusing to escalate, by refusing to explain, by refusing to consolidate. The lesson is uncomfortable. Power does not endure by being defended loudly. It endures by being structured quietly. When influence becomes systemic, hostility loses its target. When hostility loses its target, it loses relevance. That is why the most durable power rarely looks confident, rarely looks unified, rarely looks in control, because control at this level is not visible coherence. It is uninterrupted function, and uninterrupted function does not need approval. It simply continues. So when attention turns hostile, the strongest influence does not respond. It rearranges itself until the hostility has nothing left to touch. That is how influence survives. In a world that never stops watching, how